I'm Anisha, welcome to the channel, and this week I watch Olivia Rodrigo's favourite film. This is my celebrity film club where I watch a celeb of my choice's favourite movie. Ladybird is however a bit of a cop-out because it's also my favourite film, so it's not a new film. My hopes for this series did begin with a determination to watch new and interesting films to broaden my horizons, but a reason to rewatch Ladybird is not one that I'm going to ever pass up. When I first watched this, I was younger than Ladybird is in this film, and I was in the cinema at 15 in year 12, and I remember promptly finishing this film, going to McDonald's, getting 6 chicken nuggets tea, and then hopping straight into a screening of the first Black Panther. And now that's history. I've also seen every single Greta Gerwig in the theatres since then, so you can never really say that I don't support the arts. And then I watched this film again in 2019. This is when the film sort of entered the favourite film conversation for me. Since then, I've watched it once with my mum, once again randomly, and then now for this video. My opinion and perspective of Ladybird has changed. Most of the times where I've seen this film, I was Ladybird's age or younger. This is the first time that I've watched this since being a bit older, and her choices and the direction that Gerwig takes now feels different to me. Christine, or self-named Ladybird, is a fiery, fierce spirit with iconic dyed red hair living in the suburbs of Sacramento. Set in the midst of her last year of high school, of which we learn she attends her local private Catholic school, we see her blaze and steam her way through coming of age. Obsessed with boys and leaving her hometown, she butts head with her mother, who, as a result of financial difficulties, would rather she stayed safe right at home. At the film's core, it's always been Ladybird and her mother Marion. Performance of the century from both Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf will be forever burned into the mind of every girl with a turbulent relationship with her mother. Because in my heart, and at the end of the day, my mother is my mum after all. You can make this film out to be about romance, growing up, first in school. But what the film reminds us of is how big of a deal / part of your life your parents are when you are still at school. It can be stifling, resulting in her insistence of leaving, but it can also be the most supportive time in your life. It's secretive and lonely, but for a lot of us, you live every day with the people you can trust the most. As I said before, I watched this with my mum once, and when the film was ending, she turned to me and asked, "Is this meant to be us?" And so in that moment, I really realised she's actually more media literate than I ever gave her credit for. And that, just like everyone else who likes this film a little bit too much, yeah, I do see myself in this. I've never been best friends with my mum, and I never will be, but in this rewatch, I really realised that I'm not nearly as defensive of my mum as Christine is throughout this film. I think the story is a dichotomy between someone who is very pushy and caring and someone who is spirited and earnest. This then results in a lot of feelings. This is something that is represented in a lot of showing. There's not a lot of telling in this movie, there's a lot of showing. So this can be seen in the towel scene, in the prom dress shopping scene. What age is a good age to start having sex? Or when she has sex for the first time, when they go house viewing as a result of it. I think there were things that showed that her and her mum are close, that they have a relationship, but also that there are clashes. But her mum will always be there for her, though at the end of the day, they're not friends. Highlighted by the scene where she asks her mum if she likes her, and she goes, "I love you." And it's not really the relationship she's looking for, but it's the one that she has. I think that specific scene, and a lot of scenes like that, come together to show what each character is feeling towards the other, making the film feel more real, emotional, and important. It's what gives the script weight. It's why it got nominated for an Oscar. I think those conversations are so specific. I don't think these are the types of things you think about when you're having a larger conversation about family and relationships. But those small moments are what create the feeling of love. When you're trying to write love, it's not about these big declarations of love. It's about showing the little moments in relationships and how these characters coordinate and move and live together. Things like Ladybird's dad dropping her off a couple meters away from where she went to school. The film addresses it later, but in the first moment, we immediately see what kind of person Ladybird is and what her relationship to money is. There's a lot of telling us later, but showing us first. We already have our assumptions of each character before we even have to realise what that could really mean. I think the closeness of the family, I think the fact that her brother still lives at home with them, the fact that their house is quite small, the fact that they rely on each other for everything, the fact that they are all paying rent together, all of those things combined means that she's very defensive of her mother, even if her mum and her don't get along. They love each other and therefore will always want to be around each other. She's also angry about the way that she has to live. She's living a very different life to the rest of the people she goes to school with. These are the people that, other than her parents, are the people that she sees the most. And she's having a hard time kind of piecing together and understanding that the difference between these worlds is why she's acting this way. You can't be poor and popular, and these lies exist to fabricate a new kind of reality for herself. And her mother doesn't really get why she's lying and faking, because she hasn't lived that life. But her parents see her actions and feel the shame of their finances, even if she doesn't feel shame for their finances. But also, her parents are keeping things from her. She doesn't know that her dad has depression. She doesn't know the financial difficulties or that he's lost his job. All of these things, I think, come together then to create a mother and daughter who don't really know everything about each other, but are inspired by a love to keep going and always work things out. She's very defensive to Lucas Hedges' character Danny about her mum, and a big part of that is because she's young and she's shaped by everyone around her. She repeats exactly what Shelley, who is Miguel's girlfriend, says to her. She reaffirms to Danny that her mum is such a lovely person. She says she has a big heart. These are things that Ladybird might not immediately believe. She loves her mum, and she believes that in her own heart. She sees the things that her mum does for her. Her mum is nice to her and she makes her breakfast. These things that show that her mum loves her. At the same time, she's taking this other person's words, Shelley, who, doesn't have the same relationship to her mother as she does, to defend her mother, because she knows she has to. But it doesn't always come naturally, which is why she uses Shelley's words to defend her mum, because at the end of the day, she's also the person who has the most fights with her mum. The realistic nature of this film is enhanced by the cinematography, along with the sets and the clothing, which fuse together to visualise a very tangible 2002, which makes it funnier when Ladybird says that she wants to live through something, and 9/11 has just happened. And that is something that is really quite important throughout the film. We keep seeing her watch the news. She keeps saying that she wants to live through something, she wants to live through something interesting, and she wants to move to New York. We can see what living in New York can really mean. It can mean dying. She's living through something insane, something massive. And without the hindsight we have, or the foresight she could have, but is held back from having via being 17 years old, she doesn't really get what that means. And this is exactly what Ladybird as a movie is about. It's about coming of age and having your problems with your mum and getting it on with Timothée Chalamet being the height of what matters. The film sets are tactile and the cinematography is quite bright and airy, or it can be cramped and brown when it's fixating on a Midwestern style. Or it can be cramped and brown in that mid-century style. It's very stylish, even though it feels reduced and packed into one small place, which altogether I think highlights the situation that her and her family are in at the moment whenever we see their house. Her clothes are also a big part of this. She wears a uniform most of the time and she's made her own version of it. She's dyed her hair red. She's wearing it in a much more scruffy way than the others. But she also kind of polishes up when she's hanging out with the more popular kids. She understands that preppy was it. But she also is aware of her rambunctious nature and that being what's keeping her close to the popular girls. So she plays into that, especially when she's talking back to the nuns or she's speaking out in assembly about abortion. In bold moments, she decides to defy authority. I think she understands that what she wants is popularity and that what she wants is boys, which is something that I personally didn't understand the first time I watched this. I didn't get how much of this was driven by the fact that she wanted to be in a relationship. She wants to be with Danny, so she gets into drama and she puts her all into it, really. And more than anything, it's to be with him romantically. She likes the nuns, but she turns on them because of another guy. She gets into a fling with Kyle, and that's what consumes her. She even leaves Julie behind for him in pursuit of maybe being cool enough for Kyle, for associating with the right type of people to be with Kyle. And I think for a long time, I saw her as very self-serving and selfish, and she is. It's driven by desire and boys and lust, which is something this film is very open about, but not something that I'd pieced together before about her thought processes. And I think as someone who didn't really have that phase in my life and had a lot of friends who also didn't have that phase in their lives, it felt bizarre to finally watch this, being like, oh, like this was what was causing a lot of her issues. I think that bout of intense selfishness is then offset by what I think is quite a lot of emotional maturity she has by the end. Obviously, she's still reckless, and that's something that we see consistently throughout the entire movie. Her going around and fighting with the nuns, her having to go to the hospital at the end, generally just being more brazen than all of the boys that she's with. But at the end, we see her being very accommodating to her mother when her mum is unwilling to talk to her, unwilling to forgive her until the very last moment. She's the one who calls back, and in a very beautiful piece of dialogue, she says, "Do you remember what it was like the first time you drove in Sacramento?" It's a very poignant moment to leave your film on. She even goes to church, she's harking back to what she had, but she's also happy to be in a new place. It's not like she regrets her decisions, but it's an intense new chapter for her, and that's seen very clearly on screen by what she's moved by. Obviously, her emotional maturity is helped by the fact that her dad does give her what is essentially her mum's feelings written down, but it's really mature of her to actually pick up the phone and call her mother, which is something that I think is only added for a little bit of cinematic flair, and something that only a 30-year-old writing a 17-year-old would do, because I don't think any 17-year-old is actually that moved or mature even if they move right across the country. So that's a collection of my thoughts and feelings on Lady Bird. Obviously, I think Olivia has great taste. We have the same favourite movie. I'm also interested into seeing how me or Olivia Rodrigo end up changing or continuing to feel about this film. I think I've always been Lady Bird, but it's going to be interesting if I get older and I ever think of myself as Marion. I don't want children, so I don't see that massively happening, but even the small things I've seen from a different perspective give new meaning to this film. I'm going to keep watching this film for the rest of my life, and I'm excited to see things differently every single time. Plus, I think I'm going to make a longer video just about Lady Bird, the film. This really inspired me to talk about Lady Bird in way more depth. Lady Bird is my favourite film, and I've spoken about it a lot in that sense to justify to people why I picked it, but that's all I've ever had to do. Whereas right now, I'm bursting at the seams to rewatch this movie, even though I just watched it, and write about it properly. So I might end up doing that. Subscribe if you want to see that. I'll probably have that as my next video. I don't know. That's all I have to say about Olivia Rodrigo and Lady Bird. Go and watch this film or don't. Your future with Lady Bird is up to you. As always, thank you for watching. Like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you're really about it. Hope you have a great day and see you next time.